Hey, welcome to Men's Breakthrough Hangout. So today we're going to be talking about this interesting subject that we've been trying to talk about, I think, for about a week and a half, and we've had Dr. Fru and I have had some technical difficulties, like just making it work. And I think I kind of believe in spirit. So today is the perfect time to have this conversation. For whatever reason, it didn't work out in the past. Who cares? We're here right now. And the topic is the sexual, the sensual, and the spiritual, rediscovering masculine essence. So the concept is in the culture that we live in, we often are confusing sexual fascination with genuine connection. So how I have a sexual fascination with somebody, that's one thing, but what is that genuine connection? What is that real connection, that true essence of a connection that we really want with a partner? And then what do we want with ourselves? What's that real connection that we want with ourselves? So I am going to bring in my co-host here, Dr. Fru, because I'm saying a little bit about this topic, but Dr. Fru is the one that brought this topic up. How you doing, Dr. Fru?
I'm doing great. It's got a rainy day up here in LA, and we enjoy the rain.
I'll be up to your house this weekend. I'm so looking forward to coming up and spending time with you and Lynn.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to you coming.
So the topic that you had sent out to me the other day was, or about a few weeks ago, was the sexual, the sensual, and the spiritual. What is your take on that? So why don't we just jump straight in, and what are your thoughts about that?
Well, I come from a long history of working with a lot of different ages of men. Young men, I have 3 or 4 young men under 30 that I'm working with right now, as well as middle-aged men, as well as mature men, and they're actually in their 70s. I have several men I'm working with in their late 70s. So it's a big spread. And I myself have gone through many discoveries about my own sexuality and the difficulties I've had, and saw slowly over the years how that relates to the spiritual confusion that I spent a lot of time trying to sort out. I studied religion, divinity studies for a long time, 8 years, and did that. And so I never really connected those. What connected male sexuality and male spirituality for me was the sense of the sensual, what men are about, but nobody really honors, hardly anybody honors what that's about for men and their deep spiritual and sensual resonance, the resonance of the body. Because the male body, in my humble judgment, has been shamed practically from the point of birth. In fact, it goes so far back that the uh, goddess Aphrodite was disgusted by one of her son's genitalia and had them removed.
Oh, nice.
Uh,
That's terrible.
oh, she's terrible, terrible. We say Aphrodite, the goddess of love,
Yeah.
yeah, but Aphrodite was also a witch,
Yeah.
and so she's a goddess witch, and so we have down over the ages, let's say, the shaming of males and what they're about has not gone unchecked, and religion has done a good big part of that. But how that has worked in our uh, cultural, offerings like education and corporate America and so forth, the male body is pretty much avoided, or it's idealized. You have to work out and have a certain kind of body. That's one of the, I say, fixations today among a lot of males. And a lot of males feel that they don't have confidence in their body and the way their body shows up. So, for example, when sexuality shows up the way you talked about in the introduction, you have sexual fascination for a person, for, quite often for a woman. You have sexual fascination. You think that's love. And Hollywood says this must be love because it feels so grand. And we kind of hover around that, not knowing that it's also filled with time bombs. And so we got a thing called sexual harassment, in which males are shamed as much as blamed, as much as clueless about what they're trying to do uh, with women. For example, most male, I've done quite a bit of coaching around sexual harassment. Most sexual harassment claims are not from bad guys who are needing to be hospitalized or something. It's from guys who are clueless about what they're doing and what's showing up here and what they want to have happen and how they talk to this strange person called woman. How do they appreciate her? How do they say, hey, I appreciate you and I appreciate the way you show up and walk down the hall? They don't know how to say that and communicate it. So they're told to be shut up or they're told to be politically correct, neither of which option really helps them feel the deep masculinity that you're talking about in male breakthrough.
Oh, it's kind of like it's kind of like the adult version of pulling the hair in elementary school. We were pulling the hair because that was the best way to get the attention, or that's the only thought that we had. And then now in the workplace, like what can you do? What can you not do? And I find that there's a lot of there's certainly inappropriateness that exists, and I'm not going to act like it doesn't exist.
Sure.
And at the same time, there are things that people did that like it was just maybe a silly thing or not thought out, and then you get in trouble. And I've talked to men that literally have lost their jobs,
Yes. Yes.
and lost their careers, had to change careers because of something that they didn't think through. I just didn't think through that. Like and like pulling the hair. When you pull the hair, the girl in front of you, you pull the hair, you don't think through it, and all of a sudden you're in the when you're in elementary school and now you're in the principal's office. It's like, what were you doing? I go, I just kind of liked her. So what did you do? You pulled her hair. It's like,
yes.
it sounds silly, but it's what happens. And for adults, that's probably something that happens as well.
I think it does. I think your figure's right on it. I was in a school bus and I was in the ninth grade on the farm in Pennsylvania. I left home at 13. And there was a young woman named Donna Belcher, a farm girl, who had a plaid skirt on and walking down the aisle of the bus. And I reached up and grabbed the back of her elastic band around her skirt and snapped it. And she, in one motion, turned around a big arc. I can see it right now. And she swung her square little lunch pail right down and got me in the eye, got my whole face black and blue. And I was sent to the principal's office for that. And I was shamed for that. Nobody asked me, what was that about? And did you think that she was going to like that or whatever? There was just no mentoring. There was no coaching. So it wasn't that I was an abusive male, and some people would call that abuse. I would not. It was a young man's fascination and reaction from the gut brain, and not the head brain, like you're saying, not the thinking brain, but the gut brain just reached out. So that male then learns something he should never have learned. He learns that there's something wrong with me. And then the people that do coach him tell him that there's something wrong with him and he has to keep his hands off girls. Nobody says to him, you really like young girls and you really like Donna Belcher, didn't you? And there's a different way to say that to her and so forth. Not much coaching, not much mentoring, not much guidance there.
Yeah, it's really interesting. And on the other side, one of the things I think about, I was talking to some women yesterday afternoon in a provisors meeting, and we were talking about like kids, like they have different ways of raising children, and she was saying like, I do it this way, my husband does it that way, and she said, I don't know, my kids are going to turn out screwed up or what, and I go, yeah, they will. The kids are going to have their own version of life is not perfect, even if you were the greatest mom. Siddhartha ended up leaving he was a prince with everything, and he left and became a Buddha. So there's no kids are going to find problems with even the best families. So I think that the thing to do is to understand the child where that child is, not to take on one, like that you have one way of doing everything, but to stay curious, to be a curious person so that you can address what the need of that child is, and to be able to look and see, yeah, is this, because at the same time, there's a good lesson in what happened. You get smacked in the head with the lunch bell. You're not going to do that again. There's a good lesson there too.
Yeah.
Like the wild takes care of the wild, and you're
Yeah.
probably not
Yeah.
going to be
Yeah.
snapping bras and pulling that. Like, you learned a lesson. Then you go to the principal's office, which that makes sense, but then, like you said, you get shamed. So it's like, wow, did I need the shame? Did I need that extra shame to help me understand it? I don't know that that's the right way or the wrong way, but what I do know is that if we don't pay attention, and if we're not curious about the people that we're interacting with, that what we do is we leave them with something that is going to hurt them and something they're going to have to deal with in the future, versus be curious in those interactions and look and say, this is Stephen, is there something that you want to communicate, and give you the space and give you the time to be able to fumble with what you need to say so that you can get it out so it can be understood. The problem I see is that most people aren't interested in what other people have to say. They're mostly interested in what they have to do and how they're going to handle the situation. So the ability for the willingness and the ability that most people have to be able to work through a process, they don't take the time and they don't learn how to do that. And they have the empathy to work with the person to be able to see what the problem is there.
Well, we're in the area of mentoring right there,
Yeah.
because there's a very big need for young men and mentoring with the elders and the older men that is missing in our culture for the most part. And it's been missing, Robert Bly, the poet, likes to say it's been missing since the introduction of the Industrial Revolution back in the early 1800s, when father left home. The young man no longer walks across the field with his father when his father's plowing the field. The father leaves home at 6 a.m. and gets home at 6 at night or 7 at night and has a martini. And many of the families, 50% divorce rate, many of the families, the son is raised by the single mom who does a heroic job. I mean, it's a terribly heroic job for a woman to raise sons by herself. And I've worked with a bunch of women around that issue. So she's in a very tough position, and the son's in a tough position. So where does he go for the information he needs? He goes to his friends, and his friends have also come from single mother families. I speak at high schools, and I did a career day not too long ago at a big high school, and I asked the class, there's maybe 30 people, how many of them were from single parent families? I would bet 3/4 of them said single parent families. I don't know that that's nationwide, but that's an amazing stat for me. So the young male is at risk. And the reason we picked those three topics, sensuality, sexuality, and spirituality, is because there's a great need for the development of spirit in the man and connecting that to what his sexuality, which is happening, major force is happening in his life, and to connect the spiritual perspective, not religious perspective, but the spiritual perspective into his values, into his understanding of his resonance, into understanding the way his body is changing and growing, and what his passion is about, and what the warrior part of himself is about, which I want to say this to everybody who's listening, and you communicate with Martine about this or communicate with me. We have a very little amount of time, and we're going to do really an intro to these three areas, but we're going to go in depth. If you get back to us and say, we want more, we'll do a series on sensuality all by itself, and a series on sexuality all by itself, and a series on spirituality all by itself, because they really merit that for any thinking man who's trying to look at his own struggle with sexuality or unfulfilled sexual desire or loneliness or his compulsive sexuality or any way his sexuality is a problem to him. we want to talk about that. We want to offer what we share with each other and what we know out there. So you agree with that, don't you,
Oh,
Martina?
100%. And what I'm thinking also about when I look at the title, and I can see it right above us right here. So when I think about the spiritual, so the spirit to me, the spirit is that's the energy, that's the flame that's burning inside of you. That's where you get inspiration. To be inspired is internal spirit expressing itself. So it's a connection with your spirit, that whatever you want to call that, but it's that part of you that you're not going to open up the body and fight it. It doesn't exist there. You're not going to open up the brain. You're not going to see it there. It's the part of us that lives not just here, but it lives out there. So there's the spiritual part. If you don't have the spiritual part and you're dealing with sexuality, then you have no real connection. So the connection. Yeah. So my thoughts are about this. So that what the focus then becomes, it becomes almost like an insatiable thirst, or you have to quench this thing which you're lacking connection. So you'll never make the connection, but you'll be able to have the stimulus. You'll be able to have the sexual stimulus, but it will be short-lived because it doesn't connect to that part of you, that fire inside of you, that essence inside of you, which is the energetic part of you, which is that spiritual part of you. And so you're left with something missing, but don't know that it's missing because it's not there, but it's missing. And that's your spirit, that's your essence, that's your trueness, whatever that is. And so how do you be sensual? Well, you can't be sensual because that would be that's the little wire that goes between the spirit and the sex. That's the bridge. So you have sexual, and then it just sits in itself on the top of a hill, and there's no bridge to go over to this other part, and you don't even know that there's another part, and you don't even know that the bridge is missing. But you're going to keep acting it out. So you're going to act it out like, let me have more women, conquer, do all these other things. And what you're always missing, what men are always missing, is they're always missing that connection. And I can tell you,
that's right. Well, you could say, I like what you're saying, because you could say that this podcast isn't just for men. It's for men and women. When men and women come into my office, and this is like a typical scenario for a 40-something-year-old couple that been married 10 years. And he says, well, Stephen, there's no sex. We haven't had sex in 10 years. And I don't know if I ever loved her, and she doesn't know if she ever loved me, blah, 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 blah. Then he starts giving me his theories. He says, you know how women are? And I say, no, I don't know how women are. What do you? So, because I've been with my wife for 35 years and I'm discovering every day. But he says, you know how women are. Once they have children, they lose all interest in sex. And so he says, we went to a therapist, and he said, have a schedule, and every Tuesday night we have sex or whatever, blah, 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 blah. So I listened to all that. Then I see her. I see him separately in the beginning. I see her. And she says, I say to her, do you not like sex? And she says, what? I said, do you not like sex?
What are you talking about?
She says, no, I love sex. I say, do you like Fred? Oh, yeah. I say, do you like his body? Oh, yeah, I like his body. I say, I get the impression that he feels like you don't like sex or his body or him. Oh, she says, I don't like the way he makes love. And I say, what do you mean? Well, he walks in at 6:30. He's been working all day. He pours himself a drink, has a beer, whatever. He grabs my ass and says, hey, you want to have some tonight? She says, that was for 17 and 18. That's not for 40 years old. Yeah. She said he has no real connection to being a lover. And so when I start working with them, I start talking about that idea. What is the lover in the man, and what is the lover in the woman? And they are two different cats entirely. They are two different. She thinks, this is a nice story by Deborah Tannen in a book called You Just Don't Understand, where a couple is coming home. They're a mature couple. They're coming home from a wonderful evening, and they pass a bar, and she says, would you like to stop and have a drink? And he says, no, thanks. And she's disappointed and cold, and they go home. And Deborah Tannen says, what happened? Well, what happened was she was asking, do you want to continue the evening? I felt close to you. He thought she was asking if he was thirsty. So they live in two different worlds, and they don't know how to talk about that. Well, part of that, I'm not saying women are all that tuned in about sexuality and men aren't. I'm not saying that. I am saying, though, from the point of view of the male, that the mentoring, absence of mentoring, the man doesn't know how to say, what do you mean, would I like to stop and have a drink? What I feel like I've had enough to drink. Yeah, but I'd like to hang out with you a little longer. Oh, well, I'd love that. So let's go hang out. Well, maybe we'll just have a glass of water instead of more alcohol. Whatever. He is kind of stuck in a way of relating to her questions that is head brain, that is logical, rational, sequential, all of that, but doesn't get into the heart brain at all and doesn't imagine or think about at all imagining what she is saying to him or what she needs or who she is. That's where sexual harassment happens in the workforce. He can't picture who this woman is. He can only think about himself being attracted to her. So I don't want to dominate this, but I'm just
No, it's
following
really
on what you
great.
said.
No, it's good stuff. The part that made me think about was how I was talking to somebody this morning. I was talking to a woman this morning. She was asking me if I coach gay men. And I'm like, yeah, it's all the same thing. It's like we all process information. So it's like it doesn't matter if you're gay, it doesn't matter if you're a woman. Is we're gonna process. Basically, the curiosity theory is a certain way that we process our emotions and our needs and in our stories and the facts and all that. So it's a process. So it doesn't matter who you are. But she was sharing with me a little bit about her brother, and I was like, okay. And so she's introducing me to her brother, and she was asking me, do you think it's gonna work with him? What I do, and I said, I don't know. Well, just it really depends on how much where he's at, and does he really want to do some work? And she said he's very disconnected from his emotions. And I looked at her and I said, my theory about men is we're actually more emotional than women. And I said, that might sound crazy, but I do believe that. And I said, think about when we're little boys, how emotional, how expressed we are. And then we learn not to do that. So we're now dealing with as adults is the lack of freedom to express ourselves, the lack of freedom to experience what there is to experience. So of course we're closed off. Of course we think, yeah, I want to hump you and let me grab your butt, because that is as much of an experience that we know how to control. We do not know how to control intimacy. We do not know how to control empathy. We don't know how to control compassion. And those things are foreign and they are scary. Those things I think are scary for men. So when we learn how to interact with those things, we learn how to interact with our emotions, we learn how to interact with that, we learn to give ourselves trust, we learn to give ourselves safety, we learn to give ourselves respect, which I call those are the fundamentals of any relationship. When we learn to give those things to ourselves, and then we become stronger, like our muscles become stronger, then we can explore that with another person. But if we don't have it in ourselves, there's no way.
Right. There's what Martine is saying for on my side of the room is that's why we need a healthy tribe. That's why if you're a male, you need to build a healthy tribe. You need to build friendships, 2 or 3 people, could be 5 or 6, but a couple of guys in your tribe that you can tell the truth to and that tell you the truth to you, and you can mastermind this kind of conversation. You don't have to be a PhD in psychology or divinity or something to do this. What you have to do is be willing to be open with each other and to kick it around together on some regular basis. So you have some people to share these ideas with. There's lots of books. We can tell you books. There's lots of movies. We can tell you movies that are critical to this conversation. There's lots of, in this culture, there's a lot of understanding about psychodynamics, like what's your father have to do with it, what's your mother have to do with it. That's all real. That's all powerful. It's all good. But what I hear Martine saying is to get familiar and comfortable with talking to yourself about yourself and to notice where you're challenged. That's a tribal behavior. That happens with the brothers. That happens with your being able to share in an unguarded way, and they're able to share with you in an unguarded way. So think about that.
Yeah, that's getting on the field. That's the difference between being in the stands and on the field. I can read about something, I can watch a YouTube video, I can do all this other stuff. But what I need is to make a mistake without reproach. That's what I hear you saying. So when I have like my boys here with me, I need to be able to say what I want to say, and I'm probably going to screw it up. I'm
Yeah.
probably going to say it wrong, but give
Yeah.
me a chance. Listen to me. Stay curious. Stay curious long enough in the conversation that allows me to fumble through what I want to say. I will get to it. Give me the dignity of my own process so I can build my muscles, which give me the mental fortitude, or it gives me like that mental strength so that I can do that again. I can do it with you. Man,
Yeah.
I got through this. I got through this conversation. I figured it out. Man, my guys were cool with me. I'm gonna go try that with my wife. I'm gonna go try that with my boyfriend, whoever. I'm gonna go try that, and then I try it, and maybe I make a mistake. But you know what? I'm like that much stronger this next time. So maybe I make a mistake, and maybe my wife communicates to me in a way that I still feel maybe a little attacked. But you know what? Maybe I have a 1% less of that attack, and I'm going to recover that much quicker. And I'm going to build. I have something to build on. I have a little bit to build on. It's not about being the perfect man today or tomorrow. It's about that. It's about unpeeling the onion and growing and growing and growing and growing, because life is not going to stop giving you shit to work with. It's not. You're going to
And
have
you have
more.
to,
Go ahead.
yeah, you have to, in that, you have to recognize and honor that there is a deep, passionate core to yourself that Martine referred to. Little boys, little boy. You can see it when you see 3, 4, 5, 6, 7-year-old boys. If you watch them line up outside of school in the first grade, the little boys are pushing, shoving, doing this, doing that. The girls are standing in line talking to each other. So I'm not saying that women aren't passionate. I'm saying that boys early on have this energy and this passion and this break the rule part of themselves, break out of whatever's being shaped for them. And they need to do that. They need to do it because that's the way cultures change and grow. The one of the aspects of deep masculinity is the protective aspect. He's a warrior, and he has that passion within him. Do you realize that in a male ejaculation, there are 125 million sperm? If you don't think you're a creator God, all you have to do is think of that. And you have such tremendous ability to affect the whole future of the world. That passion gets shows up in many ways. It gets misused by the culture. In athletics, it often gets a lot of abused young men in athletics who are told to play hurt, or who are told no pain, no gain, that stuff, and they don't know the difference between good discipline and harming their own bodies. It shows up in many different places, and it gets used in corporate America and sales, for example. It gets misused in lots of places. So a male has to work to be conscious of what that core passion is in him, how it feels when he resonates to it, when he goes, wow, about himself, goes, wow, I'm really feeling this strongly. Whoa. I see this woman in the hallway at my office and I go, wow, now that I'm in the danger zone.
Yeah.
If I just go reactively like a knee jerk, I'm going to say, hey, baby, you look good. If I don't do that, I'm going to say, you know what? It's really nice to work around you. Your presence really affects me and I appreciate it. He's going to say something that
Let me throw
has
something in there.
it.
Let me throw another
Yeah,
option.
Go ahead.
I want to throw another option. The other option could be you connect to that part of you that enjoys the fact that you're alive, that spirituality part. And then
Yes.
there's a woman that's beautiful, there's a man that's beautiful, whatever that is, that essence, and have the emotional intelligence to keep it in.
Yes.
And
Well,
I
to
think that's what we're
transform
talking
it.
about. Yeah, to transform it, but and to identify it, because that's the thing that we're talking about, I think. And when you talk about the sexual, sensual, and the spiritual is that part of understanding that that thing you just experienced lives inside of you.
Yes.
That
Yes.
experience that I have, I just saw this. God, she's hot. That's living inside of me. Oh, I don't have to say it out loud. I can recognize it, but I can recognize it as part of my warrior, part of the warrior that lives inside of me, part of the masculine that lives inside of me. And I don't care if you like guys, you can like guys. It doesn't matter. You're a guy, if you're gay, and you see a guy and like, that guy's hot. God bless you. That's still that part of you that's the warrior that sees that is still alive. That's the life. We don't have to act it out. We don't have to act it out.
And spirituality itself is the call to transform that raw passion, that raw attraction into something that's healthy for the world, healthy for the community, healthy for the woman or the man, as you're saying, healthy for them. So you can express your deep appreciation, but you have to be artful about that, and you need to know how to be artful. You need a mentor for that. You need a tribe for that.
I was just talking to somebody about that, and I was talking about the book Think and Grow Rich.
Yeah.
Chapter 11, the mystery of sex transmutation. That's it. They talk about in this is not just something that Dr. Frew and I came up with. This is your energy, your sexual energy, your sensual energy, and your spiritual energy are not just for having an orgasm. That is the most powerful energy that you have inside of you. I don't know that there's another energy that us as human beings have inside of us that's beyond the sexual energy. That is a fire that is powerful, that's connected. That is something that you have. If you learn how to harness that, if you learn how to use that energy, you can use it to heal your body. You can use that to heal your brain. You can use that to have the discipline that you need to get the things you wanted to do in life. And if you're lucky, you can use it to have a great relationship with the one you love.
Michelangelo said, I don't sculpt statues. I release them from the granite that is brought to me. That's a creative statement.
Yeah.
That passion that Martine's talking about is that it's connected to your deep creativity. Do you know why men say things like, oh, I can't sing, I can't dance, I can't act, I don't paint, I don't sculpt? You know why they're so disconnected from their creative urges? Is because of the shaming of their sexuality. Those are all tied together. We want you to start to think, like that. We want you to start to connect the dots. That's what this podcast's about. And then if you have a few little landing places. What's this sexual urge about? What's my spiritual depth about?
Yeah.
What's my sensuality about? My wanting to touch. I did a thing for adult singles years ago, about 250 adult singles. I did a number of these speaking gigs. And I was talking one night at a Catholic church in the Valley. And the women said, well, Dr. Frew, what we don't like about being an adult single, these are people in their 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, and 70s. What we don't like is that men only want one thing. And I said, really? And I said, gee, I don't know what that is. There was laughter. Ha ha, hoo, hoo, hoo. Then I said to the men, if we can get by the giggle stage, could I ask you, what is the one thing that you want? This 70-year-old guy somewhere in there stood up. He said, I've been a widow for 10 years. I want one thing. I want my face touched. My face hasn't been touched since my wife passed away. And the women are looking at him. He says, I don't know how to say that to women. I don't know how to say it to a woman who thinks that all I really want, that women think all I really want is to have intercourse. That's not true.
Yeah.
I want to go to a movie with a woman. I want to hold hands. I want to have my face touched. I want to touch her face. And so this big conversation came out of the multiple things that men need and men want in relationship. It was just beautiful. There's a lot of tears.
So powerful. And that's the same thing I was saying earlier. You know, the ability to make a mistake. You know, it's like, you know, it may appear for you, it may occur to you that all I want to do is have sex. That's on me, and that might be on you as well. But I'll take responsibility for that. Let me clear it up, and in clearing it up, I might make some mistakes in clearing it up. So give me the dignity of having a conversation that may last 5 weeks, may last 5 years, or may last 2 seconds. And let's work that out, because what you're saying, I get that it seems true that all we want is sex. I get that. It's just not the truth, though.
Not the case. And the other side, I know we're almost out of time. I think we have like 2 more minutes, but the other side of that is the performance demand of the men who feel like they really can't deliver what they believe their woman or their lover wants. That's another part of that, because it's not about performance and it's not about delivering. It's about love, and love is about the heart, and heart is about the passion, and passion is about your spirit. So just connect those dots as you think about your own sexual challenges and your own spiritual challenges, and how they show up in your need to be touched and to touch. That's what I would say. I would kind of leave it there for today.
I love it. Okay, so kind of sum it all up, like what men's breakthrough. So all you that are listening, if you made it this far to the 36 minutes and 40 seconds, I want to thank you for that, and really to express to you what men's breakthrough is about. So when Stephen and I started to talk, what we realized really quick, at least I realized that, and I think I'm speaking for you, Dr. Frew, is that we were having a very, very rich conversation, and it didn't make sense for just you and I to have that conversation. That we realized that the conversation that you and I are having, other men are trying to have this conversation.
Yes.
Women want to be a part of this conversation, to understand not only men, but to understand themselves as well.
And we welcome them. We welcome them.
Absolutely. And so although we call it men's breakthrough, our focus is men, because we're men. If we were women, it would be called women's breakthrough. And we're committed to men being great. We're committed to men being expressed. We're committed to men working through their emotions and working through whatever they want to work through. I don't believe that you and I have anything that we think that a man should be like. Like, I don't have like an archetype that you as a man should be like this. If anything, I think what we want to do is to help men be inspired by themselves and discover their archetype, discover who they want to be, and then have the ability to express that in a way that is consistent with their values and their virtues, and moving in the direction that they want to move, that makes a difference for not only themselves and their family, but for mankind.
Let us know if you'd like in depth on these 3 areas, and we'll offer it to you.
Yeah.
I appreciate those of you who've listened today. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks a lot, guys. We'll be back in 2 weeks. Thanks for hanging out with us on Men's Breakthrough.